All right, let's jump right in. For a long, long time, we've had this pretty clear idea of what a big international company looks like, right? Where it comes from, how it works. But that whole picture is starting to get, well, fuzzy because a whole new group of players from emerging economies is stepping onto the global stage, and they're not just here to play the game, they are literally rewriting the rules.
So, when you think of a global company, what pops into your head? Probably some massive corporation from a developed country, with all the formal structures and basically unlimited resources. For decades, that was pretty much the only model.
But that answer, it's changing, and it is changing fast. The international businesses of today are often way smaller, they're more agile, and they come from places you might not expect. And to make it, they've had to throw out the old rulebook and write a completely new one. Now, to really get their new playbook, we have to appreciate the incredible uphill battle they're facing. I mean, these companies aren't just starting from behind. A lot of the time, they're playing on a field that's missing some really important lines. There's a key concept here academics call institutional voids. Just imagine trying to play a board game, but the rulebook is incomplete, the person in charge keeps changing their mind, and the other players don't always follow the rules anyway. That's what it can be like for companies in emerging markets. You can't always count on basic things like contracts being enforced or getting reliable information. On top of those voids, these emerging firms are up against what's really a triple threat. First, there's the liability of newness. They're young, they're unproven. Then there's the liability of smallness. They just don't have the deep pockets that the established giants do. And crucially, there's the liability of outsidership. They aren't part of the old school global business clubs. That is a seriously tough hand to be dealt. So how do you win when the odds are so stacked against you? Well, you don't play by the old rules. You create your own. And this is the emerging economy playbook. It's all about turning what looks like a disadvantage into a massive strength.
Their winning strategy really comes down to three key things. First up, speed and agility. They can pivot and adapt to what the market's doing way faster than their huge rivals. Second, smart networking. When the formal networks are closed off, they lean on informal ones. Family, community, connections abroad, to build trust and get what they need. And third, creative integration. They are masters at taking their own limited resources and mixing them with things that are openly available to create something totally new and valuable. Okay, so to see how this all actually plays out, let's look at a fascinating case study. It's a tale of two neighbors. Finland, a super developed economy, and Russia, a massive emerging one. They share a border, but when it comes to business, they are worlds apart. Now, what's so wild about this is just how stark the differences are. Take a look. For institutional development, Finland is ranked number 1 in the world. Russia is 83rd. And for corruption, Finland is 3rd from the top. Russia is way down at 131st. This isn't just a bunch of numbers. It paints a picture of two completely different realities. One is built on transparency and stability. The other, well, it's about navigating complexity and a whole lot of uncertainty. And this totally different environment has a huge impact on something called responsible business practices, or RBPs. You can just think of this as the core ethics of how a company operates, everything from transparency to how it treats its employees and its partners. And the difference between Finland and Russia on this is really something. You see, when a small business from Finland and a small business from Russia try to work together, they figure out pretty quickly that they're not just speaking different languages. They have fundamentally different definitions of what it even means to be a good business partner. Just listen to this quote from a Russian manager. It is so revealing. He says social responsibility means paying a 100% white salary, which means totally on the books, all taxes paid. In an environment with all those institutional voids we talked about where cutting corners can be common, doing this is a really big deal. It's a signal of reliability. It's how you prove you're a serious, trustworthy company. But here's the twist. For the Finnish companies looking to partner with them, paying your people legally and paying your taxes, that's not a badge of honor. That is the absolute bare minimum. That's just the price of admission to the game. It's not how you actually win. And this just perfectly illustrates the Finnish point of view. For them, real responsibility goes way beyond the letter of the law. Things like being transparent in your operations, having a reputation for ethical behavior, and building a deep sense of trust, these aren't just nice-to-haves. They are the actual currency of the business relationship. Following the law? That's just assumed. So what does this tale of two neighbors tell us about the bigger picture? Well, it shows that the very foundation of global trade is shifting right under our feet. And here is the single most important takeaway.
As business gets more global and connects people from these vastly different environments, the real currency isn't just money or contracts, it's trust. You see, in places with strong institutions, the system itself helps create trust. But in places with those institutional voids, trust has to be built the old-fashioned way, person to person, reputation by reputation.
And this forces everyone to adopt a new playbook. The old way of thinking was that a formal contract was good enough, and that we all basically agreed on what business ethics meant. The new playbook knows that's just not true. It puts fundamental ethics and transparency first, and it understands that you have to actively, intentionally build trust when you're working across these different worlds. And all of this leaves us with a pretty fascinating question for the future, doesn't it? As these nimble, resilient companies from emerging economies keep growing and expanding their influence, will their hard-won playbook, the one built on agility, informal networks, and a deep, deep understanding of trust, will that become the new global standard for how business gets done everywhere?